So happy to see you, and please mute your phones or your computers, whatever you're joining us with, as we're trying to keep the tech without feedback. So one of the first things we're going to do is have a land acknowledgement that Brand is going to relieve. And I'm just to introduce myself. I'm Kathy High. I'm the coordinator for Nature Lab here. And this is
Branda Miller. I'm the Arts and Education Coordinator at the Sanctuary. And we are really honored to be here today and to have all of you here to celebrate and inaugurate this grand opening of our Nature Lab. As we start, we just want to dedicate this session to Raquel Menchikova, who was a beautiful artist who passed away this week. A young person, a young child who was very involved in environmental work. She worked with us at the arts department at RPI, and her spirit is part of this place.
Yeah, we need a plaque for her.
Yeah, and you had just seen an environmental video that she had made, right?
Yeah, she made a beautiful video.
So she's in our hearts. And it is with gratitude and humility that we acknowledge that the Sanctuary for Independent Media and our new Nature Lab Center resides upon the ancestral homelands of the Mohican people, who are indigenous peoples of the land of New York. Despite tremendous hardships and being forced from their land, today their community resides in Wisconsin and is known as the Stockbridge-Muncie community. We pay honor and respect to their ancestors, past and present, as we commit to building a more inclusive and equitable space for all.
I'd like to thank some of the tech people who are behind the scenes here. One of them is Steve Pierce, who is the Sanctuary's executive director. And he's actually, you might get a sighting of him at one point. And also Melissa Bromley, who is doing our live Facebook stream. So thank you both for being with us. This event is also co-sponsored by the IER Presents program that we run at RPI, where Brand and I are both professors, and our School of Humanities, Arts, and Social Sciences at Rensselaer. And it was also made possible by the New York State Council for the Arts and the support of Governor Andrew M. Cuomo and the New York State Legislature. None of the Sanctuary's program would be possible without the support of our community. So I'm going to do a little pitch here. The support comes in a donation, in donated time, artistic talent, and yes, in dollars. We are especially grateful to those of you who become Sanctuary sustainers. Whether you're contributing $1 a month, $100 a month, your commitment to the Sanctuary ensures that events like this, and all of our work can happen. It is a labor of love, I will say this. If you're not already a Sanctuary sustainer and you'd like to, please visit mediasanctuary.org. Thank you. So we're just checking our script here. Brandon wants to ask you a question.
Right. We recognize that we are a model, that we are grounded in a very hyper-local place, which is one block in north central Troy, New York, which is in the capital region of New York State. But it's one block in one of the most economically disadvantaged neighborhoods of the entire state. And we are very inspired at how that is one node in this international network of all of you who've joined us today. So we're just wondering if you could just let us know in chat where you're coming from, your neighborhood, your lab, your state, your country. Just join it in so we can see the kind of amazing power, our eco power of the day.
Yeah, so add that into the chat. We would be happy to see that. Philadelphia, woo!
Yay. And also, if you have any hopes for our lab and how we can connect with all of your labs.
Yeah. So I'd also like to thank our guests who are here today. We're going to get to them in a little bit after our kind of introductory comments about what this space is and how it came to be. We have an MC who's amazing, who is the artist and Professor Jennifer Willet from the INCUBATOR Lab in Toronto. I'm not in Toronto, sorry, in Canada, Windsor, Canada. We have Marta de Menezes, who's with Ecotopia and Cultivamos Cultura from Portugal. We have Paul Vanus, who's here from the lab, Coalesce Biological Lab in Buffalo, at the University of Buffalo. We have Catherine Febria, who's with the Glear Healthy Headwaters Lab, also in Windsor, Ontario. We have Beth Tuck, who's the director of GenSpace in Brooklyn, and Joel Ong, who is with the Sensorium Center for Digital Arts and Technology in Toronto, and Victoria Vesna, finally, but last but not least, Victoria Vesna from Art Sci in UCLA, Los Angeles.
Woohoo!
So you're going to be hearing from all of them in a little bit. Thank you all for joining us. It's really, this is like the big sisterhood that you're meeting now and becoming part of. So I'm going to switch now and just put on a little bit of a short PowerPoint. So bear with me as I share this screen. And get it up to full presentation mode. Everybody seeing this here? Does it look like a PowerPoint to you?
Yes.
Great. Okay.
So we're just going to give you a little bit of a background as to who we are. Although we started actually as a kind of a indie, well, we started as the Indie Media Center doing radical media. At this point, we really are connecting art and science for the struggle for freedom. And we do this through participatory action in every way, whether it's media, science, urban gardening. It's all about shifting the power to our local community and having that be a magnet for people coming from all over, like Natalie, a shout out to you, who was an intern from Montreal and now is coming back virtually with us today. And so everything we do, our mission is to use art, science, and participatory action to promote social and environmental justice and creative expression.
So you can see on the left of the screen, this is the first building that we got on this block. This is where the Sanctuary for Independent Media has its presentation area. And we have concerts and talks and films and workshops. All of the Nature Lab workshops were held in there until we got this amazing space. So, and just to continue with the sort of amazingness of the sanctuary, and I say that again with great love and respect and gratitude for the millions of people who make this happen. We have so many incredible volunteers and people working here. But we have all of these different programs and initiatives. College City Growers is our community gardens right down the block here. Nature Lab we're sitting in, and we're going to be introducing it to you all today. People's Health Sanctuary we're going to introduce as well. They'll be upstairs here. The Sanctuary Radio is a low power FM radio that has programming 5 days a week, live programming. And there's like a wealth of podcasts on our website, mediasanctuary.org, that I invite you to look at, including interviews with some of you who are speaking today. Thank you so much. Sanctuary TV, we make amazing recordings of music events and all of this. And Youth Sanctuary, there's a huge amount of educational elements to what we do. And that's part of our mission, is to be training youth and into progressive thinking, critical thinking, and moving towards all of these goals in the future. On the left of the screen, you can see a map of the block and all of the different buildings and abandoned lots that we turned into gardens, food forests, and residencies, performance spaces, and labs. And then down below that is the outreach for our radio station, which thanks to Steve Pierce and others, it has an incredible reach around the region of the Capital District in New York State. I can never get this to go. There we go.
And these initiatives that we're talking about are all really intersectional, cross-disciplinary, and through those intersections, we're just like watching serendipity happen and feeling the magic of community and people power. This is a very exceptional spot. You can see our Water Justice Lab folks at the top in this picture, because we are at the northern tip of the Hudson River estuary. And so it's actually extremely significant geologically and also historically, because we are just right at Federal Lock 1, which is the first lock of the Erie Canal, and which really is considered the history of the Industrial Revolution in the United States. We're also in an environmental justice zone. And we're in a census tract called Census Tract 404, which we find very interesting. It's like when you can't find a page and it comes up 404, that's this place. It's a food desert. There are the normal resources, there are no banks. And people, there's a very, very high rate of poverty here. There's an average of people dying 15 years earlier here. And so from this has evolved the People's Health Sanctuary. A few years ago with our youth, we did a community design charrette or think tank. What do we need to do? We asked our neighbors and the community around us, if we're putting a lab into this EJ zone, this economically devastated space, what do we need to do in the building? And it came back really loud and clear that we could not bring a science lab into this space without also giving space for dealing with people's trauma, with self-care, and from that, the People's Health Sanctuary has evolved. And you can see in the middle bottom image, that's upstairs. We ran out of money on the first floor. But it's a work in progress, and we will invite you back for another event when People's Health Sanctuary opens now. But yesterday, when we had kind of a VIP little sneak opening, we had many doctors, public health practitioners. So this is a whole health justice network that's intersecting with our work in art and science that is really offering all kinds of new creative opportunities.
And you want to talk about the sturgeon?
Sure, you want to talk about the sturgeon?
Sure. Okay. So you can see also on the bottom right, there are images of this fish that's really had been predominant in the Hudson River. It's called a sturgeon, and they can be massive. They can get up to 15 feet, so like 6 meters long. They are incredible fish, but they were, with the Industrial Revolution that Brandon mentioned, they were kind of devastated, and all the pollution that went into the river, and their numbers dwindled. So we had a wonderful artist, Jillian Hirsch, who painted on one of the squares of right outside of one of our buildings, our Freedom Square Park. So she painted on the street these fish, and inside the fish, each and every fish had a different kind of wish for what we could take into the community. So you see rebound there, and here you see resist.
Oh wait, switch to us, Steve, please. Resist.
That's okay, it's on our shirts, you'll see it, you'll see it. So that has become one of our mottos, because the sturgeon are actually coming back because the Hudson is gaining. It's becoming cleaner. It's not completely cleaned up yet. It's got a long ways to go, but it's getting there. It's getting better than it was. And so let me just introduce you to 2 projects that we're doing this summer and ongoing, but these are our first 2 projects for the lab. The first is our Water Justice Lab, and we want to thank really couldn't have done this without the support of the Riverkeeper. And Riverkeeper is an amazing group that actually, sorry, my email just interfered here. An amazing group that watches the Hudson and cares about the health of the Hudson, all up and down the Hudson, from where it enters into the ocean outside of New York City, up into the Adirondacks to its source. And they have been testing the Hudson for about 20 years, and they needed a laboratory to be their north node, so they chose us. So we take all of the testing, water testing, from here to up through the top of the Adirondacks. So it goes furthest north in New York State. These are our youth fellows. They also have been sponsored by Riverkeeper. So you see Shanzanique, Genesis, Gabrielle, and the 3 of them this year have been the Water Justice Science Fellows, and they're training to do this work of testing for Enterococcus in the Hudson.
And actually just yesterday, we have 31 community science samplers who bring their samples to this lab. And yesterday they received the samples, and today they're going to do the final scientific readings.
Yeah, it's a 2-day process that happens once a month. The other project we're starting next month is called the Soil Justice Lab. And this Soil in the City is from a comic book that we've designed that is going to be put out in the world. You can find it on the website, Our Soil. It's RPI's website, Our Soil. I would like to give a big shout out to Abby Kinsey, who I think is here today, who's the PI for this project. It was funded by a National Science Foundation grant and runs through, this is Abby's book, and it runs through RPI, Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. Dan Walls is the postdoc and kind of the scientist on the floor here who'll be working with community members who we're going to bring in to teach them how to test for lead contamination in our urban soils. And they're going to be using these very great DIY kits to get a measure of how much lead might be in the soil. It's not going to be able to be used for science statistics, but it will give you a really good gauge if you have problems and issues with the soil. And then you can watch, make sure your kids don't play in that soil, et cetera, et cetera. Listed here are the other people in that team too, who include an international group from Chile, Sebastian Urita, Monica Ramirez Andriota, and Salvatore Engel Di Mario. And they're coming from the US, from the west of the US and Chile and here. And now we have a quick tour, as Brandon pointed out, of the lab. So let me get out of this.
You can
Hold
walk.
on, hold on 1 second. Let me get out from this. Let me stop sharing. Okay,
Okay, here you go.
quick tour.
I'm
Oh,
following you.
me. Okay, let's go here. You can show Steve, you get feedback. Okay, and come over here. This will be just an example of some of the things we'll have here. These samples were bequeathed to us by Brandon Ballingy, artist and scientist who's been here many times, who we love. We have photos that show you, oh, don't show that one. Photos that show you things that we've done in the past. This is a workshop we did to test for antibiotic resistant bacteria in the Hudson. Again, we just got evidence that yes, that's happening here. We also want to thank the DEC for giving us the funding to build this space, the Department of Environmental Conservation. This is Chris Bowser, who leads a eel workshop. The eel comes up to right around here every spring
From the Sargasso.
from the Sargasso Sea. And so this is a workshop that worked with that.
There's Ellie who's on the screen.
Ellie
Thank you,
Irons,
Ellie,
who's
for
an
all the
amazing
education.
PhD student with us and also an artist. You tell me this.
This is our gardens and chickens.
Right here, I'm gonna hold it now. And then this is one of our amazing new interns, Claire Hutchinson.
From
Hello.
Duke.
Here.
Came all the way
Yes,
from
from Duke.
How long?
Okay.
Okay, now let's go to the film.
Oh, and then here's Angelo testing in the Hudson.
This is part of the testing, yes, exactly.
And Joe Fama.
Show them outside, Brandon, so you can see like the backyard.
Oh, this is a very special thing. They made a time capsule with Ellie.
Turn the computer to you, because they can't hear you.
Ellie, you wanna,
Go ahead, tell them.
anyhow, they made a wish for the future and they're all gonna come back when they're old, in their 40s, they said, and pull out the time capsule. But they
Okay.
made that right outside of this place.
We're gonna go to the
You
film.
wanna show outside?
We're gonna go to the film now, Brand. Come on, we're running late. We'll go outside later. Come. Okay, thank you all. That was fun. So we're gonna turn it over to Steve Pierce.
Oh,
You
I'm
wanna
just gonna give
introduce
a
the
quick
film?
intro.
Yeah.
So we're about to show a film, and this really connects the participatory science and participatory media from Nature Lab in the sanctuary. This was made by the Water Justice Lab youth. We got a commission from Riverkeeper to have it as their like kind of the main kind of climax of their big Riverkeeper Fisherman Ball Gala fundraiser last week. The youth have been working on this for about 5 months. For the first few months, they were just researching environmental justice, interviewing people. You're going to see them doing that in the film. And then they made this film to try to tell their story about the Water Justice Lab. It's about 8.5 minutes long, and it'll really give you a sense of this place and of the power of the youth who are participating.
right, we're walking to the river, boys. This is where we're going.
Most people here are black, and then there's some white people here, but then there are also white people that have lower income. We all know the pollution in Troy is bad. We all know the pollution in the Hudson is bad, but we don't know what to do because no one's working to help us. I feel like it just makes everyone feel like they're not cared about. Well, I knew the river was pretty close, but like, it's my first time really taking this route to see the river.
Do you think that a lot of the rest of the community here also haven't really experienced this?
To be honest, I don't even think many people know that the river is right here. The river still needs help, and we are the ones that can help it.
In this life, the true history is kept from our children. And in this life, whoa, illusion reigns.
We are forming the Water Justice Lab at the Sanctuary for Independent Media in partnership with Riverkeeper to not only establish a water quality sampling lab for the Hudson River, but also to educate people about water justice.
We learned this year that water justice is just one aspect of the broader environmental justice movement. Communities of color and low-income communities like North Troy are disproportionately impacted by polluting industries. Environmental racism is the disproportionate impact of environmental hazards on people of color. Over the course of spring 2021, we interviewed several people about their perspective on environmental justice and climate justice.
Do you know what environmental justice is?
Yes.
All right. You tell me what environmental justice is from your perspective.
I think environmental justice is just like taking care of the planet and having like equal access to just like great resources from the planet for everybody.
I think that's a great definition of environmental justice. And I understand environmental justice as a matrix. I see racism as that object that has evolved, right? And we can see through the lens of environmental justice how that impacts us in tangible ways. I take police brutality, for example. Something that's unique to our communities and to our personal environments, and understand that as an environmental justice issue.
Climate justice is class justice and racial justice and all of those other things, because those are the communities being hit most by it. This is the way it's always been from the start. Colonialism, like fueled by white supremacy, capitalism, it was all about ripping people's connections from the land.
So we originally lived along the Mahicanatuck River, and that's the Hudson River. First it was the Dutch, then it was the French, then it was the English. It wasn't voluntary removal, we were forced every time.
And then we got to do one more time. This is going to be our actual sample. Tilt upstream. Perfect. And then we're going to pull it out. Yep. And we're going to cap it. Do we have the cap?
So this weekend at Nature Lab, we are finally going to be testing 30 samples of water all along the Hudson River.
And I feel like today we got a proper introduction from Sebastian.
All of our water samples. All right, let's begin. More than 24 hours, yeah, grab that one. So look at the in time on top.
Oh, I get first look?
Yeah, you get first look.
Oh, whoa! Whoa, it's vibrant!
They look like jellyfish.
I mean, it's fun to look at, but dang, that water's dirty.
You grab the container, you'll put it under that light, and it's like a little case, and whatever containers glow, they're the ones that have bacteria in them, and you'll count how many there are, how many that glow, and you'll write down your recordings. So we can figure out, like, is downstream have more bacteria than upstream, or is it the other way around, and just find patterns and certain things like that.
What's going on?
They're so funny.
You didn't fry your eyeballs because it's so bright.
All the big ones are glowing. Every single one.
What was more surprising to me was seeing the amount of pollution that was in the more polluted water, but it didn't surprise me that the more polluted water was from the more urban areas. I think people don't realize how closely related the environment is with racial discrimination. What we could do with the information is educate others and ourselves, so then we can find out new ways and come up with new ways and ideas of trying to make the water better for these communities.
In this life, the true history is kept from our children, and in this life, whoa, illusion reigns. In this life, we continue to seek answers from the lying leaders. In this life, we live for food and food alone. Now see now, I am so tired of witnessing children that are filled with need. I am so tired of living in a world saturated with greed. And see my spirit cries out against the injustices committed upon my peoples. I am so tired.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Thanks for watching that film. I would like to turn it over to, and thanks for everybody who was in that film. Actually, speaking of which, Shazanique Pollock is here. She just arrived because the lab is going to be operating this afternoon. So if you see somebody in the background, it's Shazanique, and there'll be others coming in, and we'll introduce them and get them to talk to you in a little bit. But we're also going to go next to Jennifer Willet, and she's going to take over and have introductions for all the other participants of our sister labs here. I'm going to do an introduction of Jennifer though, because she is so amazing. Dr. Jennifer Willet is a Canada Research Chair in Art, Science, and Ecology, and an Associate Professor, maybe a rising Associate Professor in the School of Creative Arts at the University of Windsor, Canada. Willet is an internationally successful artist and curator in the emerging field of bioart. Her work explores notions of representation and the body in relation to evolving biotechnologies with an emphasis on ecological metaphors. I should also mention that in 2009, Jennifer opened the first bioart lab in Canada called INCUBATOR Hybrid Laboratory at the intersection of art, science, and ecology at the University of Windsor. So welcome, Jennifer. We're super, super happy to have you here. And I guess I'll just turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. So thumbs up. Can everyone hear me okay? Awesome.
Yes.
All right. I can't tell you what a pleasure it is to be here and how much I really adore you both. And I'm so proud and excited for you. This is a wonderful opportunity. Thank you for the invitation. And thank you for your lovely video. It really outlines the powerful work that you already do and that this lab will support in the future. So I'm going to start off with a little bit of a performance or an evocation for your new space. So I'm here at the University of Windsor in Canada. My name is Dr. Jennifer Willet. I am a full professor as of last week at the University of Windsor, and I am here to welcome you all to the Nature Lab opening. In preparation for today's event, I collected some water samples. This one is from the Detroit River, where I live and work. And this one was sent to me via FedEx from Nature Lab in the Hudson River. And so today what I'd like to do is merge these two water samples together as a sort of symbolic celebration of our labs coming together in a network of science and art and social justice. So the first thing I would like to do is I would like to acknowledge that the University of Windsor sits on the traditional territory of the Three Fires Confederacy of First Nations, which includes the Ojibwa, the Ottawa, and the Potawatomi, and that this land has been traveled upon for thousands of years before us, and we are guests here, and I would like to say thank you for that. So today, here I am to welcome community members, guests, colleagues, friends, and family to the virtual opening of Nature Lab at the Sanctuary for Independent Media in Troy, New York. Today, I will serve as your host and MC as we fet a new lab into being. Much like you would celebrate a new baby or feast a new home, today we conjure into being a community, a social and intellectual network, an expression of love for our colleagues and their new laboratory as a physical incarnation of the world we all want to live in, rather than the world that we have inherited today. First, I want to acknowledge our hosts, the brilliant minds behind Nature Lab, Brenda Miller and Kathy High. I've known Kathy for almost 20 years and have the utmost love and respect for her as an artist, pedagogue, administrator, and social activist. I've only known Brenda a few years. We met in Portugal at the inaugural FEM meeting, and I'd like to shout out to our FEM meeting members who are joining us here today in celebrations of our sister labs, as many women in science and art and technology open labs up all over the world. So I've come to know Brenda over a short period of time. We've become fast friends and colleagues, and I am in awe of her durational commitment to social change through action over words. Thank you, Brenda. It's so beautiful to meet you in this context again. I also want to acknowledge the larger community of Nature Lab, and I have to say they emailed me the list this morning. It is too long. I would be talking for 20 minutes, but you have built a beautiful family, a network, a community who are all committed to these ideas. And to all of them, I am grateful. This is an auspicious time to bring a new research laboratory into being. Just at the tail end of a global pandemic, we have learned a few things about the role of science in human civilization. We have learned that science is a spectacular emergent property of human activity on planet Earth, and possibly one of the highest forms of knowledge that we have given birth to. Science and medicine have reasserted their brilliance in the contemporary imagination by producing life-saving medical protocols and effective vaccines in a very short period of time under catastrophic circumstances. We have learned that science and medicine are not monoliths. They are communities made up of people and organizations who are deeply committed and self-sacrificing and brave, but also fallible and full of bias, much like people like you and me. We have learned that science does not exist in a vacuum. It is not objective. We have learned that scientific problems are not separate from from social problems and political problems and economic problems. We have learned that science can be short-sighted and is sometimes harmful when it ignores data and experiences and knowledges outside of its colonial paradigm. And lastly, we have learned what we in this community have known all along, but maybe the world is ready to learn, that science is an entangled art. It cannot and should not be practiced outside of a cacophony of tension and context and community and love. The Sanctuary for Independent Media and Kathy and Brenda, as members of that community, have built a lab that is entangled with its local ecology and the social and political and economic tensions of their community. The pandemic has taught us that we need new models for engaging with science and technology and medicine as entangled public social practices. And today I bring together an auspicious list of guests who are also engaged in this practice to celebrate you and to honor you and to welcome you into our international community, our network, our fold. Today, we've brought together Marta de Menezes, the director of Ectopia, of Cultivamos Cultura out of Portugal. Today, we have joining us for a very brief period of time from a mountaintop, Paul Vanus, the director of Coalesce Lab at the University of Buffalo. Today, we have brought a colleague from the University of Windsor and soon really becoming a dear friend of mine, Dr. Catherine Febria from the Gleer Healthy Headwaters Lab at the University of Windsor. We have brought Beth Tuck from GenSpace in New York City, one of the most innovative community engagement labs in the world. We have Joelle Ong from the Sensorium Center at York University. And we have Victoria Vesna from ArtSci at UCLA. We've brought this auspicious community of guests and other people who have built their own communities and their own labs that are practicing entangled and local ecologically engaged science together to welcome you into the fold. Today we celebrate you, but more importantly, tomorrow and into the future, we support you through the long road ahead of certifications and bureaucracy and funding challenges, data and experiment design, personnel and community struggles, and the joy and the triumph and the love that is coming your way. Thank you and welcome to our group. So what I'd like to do today is I would like to connect with some of this beautiful network that we have brought together and have some chit chats with them about their labs or their research spaces, any words of advice they have to offer you, and to fetch you a little bit at this time. So the first person I'd like to speak with is Marta de Menezes. Welcome, Marta.
Hey, Jennifer.
How are you?
Everybody.
You're sitting in your own sister lab that recently opened.
I'm not, but I did put my fake background.
Oh, it's doing a very good job.
But it is my brand new space, so I don't have a lot of advice now. It's just starting.
So,
but
Marta,
it's very
tell us a little bit about your space.
Of course. So as you mentioned, I am director of Cultivamos Cultura, which already has a lab, a sort of a field lab in the south of Portugal. And last week we opened up a space for Ectopia in Lisbon. And in that space we have I think this is something that we've discussed as well, Jennifer, Kathy, and I, and some of the other people in this event. It's a multifunctional room. Yes, is how many things can you put in the same space? Because we want to do a lot of things at the same time, and we tend to do a lot of things at the same time. So it is, and I took inspiration from your lab, actually, Jennifer, the space where you're at, and and maybe it made it a little bit even wackier. And I designed a lab on wheels that I can hide or show or move around the space wherever I need it. And this is the lab bench that is on wheels. Because I need to be able to show it publicly or not, depending on what is in exhibition in the new space of Ectopia. So Ectopia is an office space, it's a kitchen space, it's a living room space, it's a bedroom space, it is an exhibition space, and it's a working space. And so how do you put all of these things in the same area without them crashing into each other and basically destroying everything? And this is what Ectopia is. So it's a dynamic space. I think that's the only thing I can describe it as, and it will be as dynamic as I can make it. But I'm looking forward to learning from your experience as well, because your lab, your second lab, is also going to open up really soon, and I'm looking forward to that event. And I've been a little bit dreaming with Brenda and Kathy over the nature lab. I saw the house when it was still abandoned, and I saw the dreams and the twinkle in their eyes of things that were going to happen, and I can't wait to be a part of it as well. And so I'm looking forward to sharing the experience of fumbling it up, making a mess, and learning from it and doing better next time.
Thank you so much, Marta. It's such a pleasure to be with you again, and congratulations on your new space. Next, I would like to call out and see if Paul Manus is in the Zoom room. Did he arrive yet? Anyone know? So Paul is supposed to be joining us, and he and his family are climbing on a mountaintop. So whenever he joins us, please someone let me know, and we'll hear more about his lab. The next guest that we have here today is Dr. Catherine Febria. She is the director of the Glear Healthy Headwaters Lab at the University of Windsor. Catherine, are you here?
I'm here.
Thank you so much for coming and for meeting my crazy friends.
Oh my God, I love it. Thank you for the invitation to be here. Ani, bonjour. ¿Cómo está?
So please tell us a little bit about your lab and the type of research that you do.
Well, I'm just really privileged to be here. So first, just congratulations to Nature Lab. I'm so happy to be in this virtual space with you, and I look forward to visiting the Hudson, or what I learned today, Mahanicatuk watershed. So my lab was established 2 years ago. I relocated my research from Aotearoa, New Zealand. I'm an immigrant settler traveling around through water and coming into community with water and people. And my research is focused on making our headwaters, the connection between land, water, and people, a meaningful one, and using science as our way to engage, understand, and restore relationships with our water. And so we are very much a science lab. I'm a bit of an underdog scientist. I study wetlands, intermittent streams, and drains that are normally the ones that we bury, bulldoze, and pollute without any sort of recognition that that is the hotspot of all of the nutrient processes that we require to keep our water healthy. The soil that runs off our landscape into waterways. And I look to not just do the science of how things are bad, but the science and the solutions for how we can restore the communities and the water that we depend on. So it looks very multifaceted. We use carbon characterization tools. We look at biodiversity in all its forms, from microbes all the way up to fish and invertebrates. And we look and revisit and engage our communities in all of the knowledges they bring. So we have a very diverse team in the Healthy Headwaters Lab that includes farmers, settler, and indigenous. And we also have Ode'inin, which is Anishinaabe language for heartberry. We have an indigenous knowledge circle that is rooted in our group and centers all of our thinking to ensure that the science we do is not colonial in any way, and that we are well and truly thinking about water and our relationship with it as part of the science. And so if we want to advance and really think about future of water for future generations, that's sort of where we begin, and use the science to ensure that we can not only revalue water, but heal it and our relationship with it. So, miigwech.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Now, I should say that we met through, you reached out to me. You were a new faculty member here at the University of Windsor, and you said, Jennifer, I'm starting a new lab and I need to integrate art more regularly into our practices. Can you help me out with that? I never received an email.
No, scientists don't come with that question. Yeah, I mean, as you know, before we had statistical software packages and data, we had stories. And so that comes from so many cultures around the world that the knowledge we share expands over space and time through the stories we share. And so it was really important. And I think when you look at the science, it's these, again, human impacted waterways that we need to revalue. And and it's also taken generations for the water to get this unwell. And so by engaging the social dimensions, by using art in all of the ways we can understand it, but also characterize it, explore it, interrogate it at the community level, it was important to try and find a way to see art as a tool, or use art as a tool in that effort.
Thank you so much. Any last words of wisdom for Nature Lab?
I think I just went a little bit. Did I drop?
No, you're great.
No, you're good.
I can't hear you yet. Hold on.
Oh, okay.
Let me just, I think my.
You're good. We hear you.
Yeah, there we go.
That's okay. We can move on to our next guest. Thank you so much, Catherine.
I think I'm back.
Oh, there you're back. I just wanted to know if you had any last words of wisdom for
No,
Nature
I
Lab.
can't. Take out my headphones. That's your technical difficulty for my.
I just wanted to know if you had any words of wisdom for Nature Lab before we went on. Oh, I think we're going to move on. So the next guest that we have is Beth Tuck from GenSpace. And Beth is the only individual here today that I've not yet met in person. So welcome, Beth.
It's such a pleasure to meet you, Jennifer. I really, really enjoyed your opening remarks and welcome and sharing of the story. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. So please tell everyone about GenSpace.
Yeah, so I am really lucky that I get to inherit an incredible lab. I came into GenSpace about 3 years ago. And GenSpace is one of the first. In fact, sometimes we claim to be the first community lab, although, you know, you want to decide what that really means to different people. But we were founded in 2009 in North Brooklyn living room. And the founders were a journalist, an artist, a couple of biologists, a couple of technologists, some entrepreneurs. So we had this kind of interdisciplinary flavor from day one. And so since then, GenSpace has grown to be a pretty thriving little community lab. This is my virtual background behind me. I'm happy to share some more about the lab itself and kind of some of the projects that we do. But in a nutshell, we are working on being a community space for people to science in their own ways and in their own creative practices. So we support artists, entrepreneurs, designers who are using the lab as their lab or as their studio. We have community project teams, and I'm happy to share with you some of those project ideas and what we're working on and what we're going to build. We support teaching and learning. So we have a lot of hands-on workshops and classes where people who don't want to go back and get a PhD can come and learn enough to get started in their own practice and then bring it out to however they're going to take it. We have youth internship programs and ways of supporting the young people in our community as they learn and then grow to be advocates in their own communities and neighborhoods. And then we have a smattering of education outreach and stuff in the neighborhood. We go to the park and fly kites and collect microbes, or we genetically test 100 people for the love gene at Valentine's Day, or whatever projects we can do together to bring science out into the world in kind of funky, untraditional, creative, surprising ways to just connect with people wherever they are. So yeah, I'm really excited and proud to be part of this broad network of badass lady bosses in this community. It's just a really fun, wonderful time to be part of this growing movement globally where we can make science that really means something for people. So I'm really grateful and excited to be here. Thanks.
Can you share with us one project that you're working on, a future project you're working on right now?
Yeah, so I personally am a scientist by training, so my excitement gets into what are the biotechnology things that we can develop together. So a couple summers ago, we started this project, and then of course pandemic happened and shut us down, but I'm hopeful that we can pick it up again. We were learning about the microbes that live on the skin. So what are our natural critters that live with us and on us and in us? And we were finding out that a couple of those critters have natural defenses against some other critters. So, antibiotic resistance is such a major problem. I remember hearing Kathy and her crew say they were testing for antibiotic resistance in their water. And what if we could learn from our own critters about how to defend against some of those nasty critters? So we found a gene that's involved in antibiotic resistance. And we tried to engineer that into a new nanomedicine topical gel. So that's where we were heading with that project. So again, thinking about issues that are important for public health, that are important for community health, and ways that we can learn from nature to make new things and make new exciting projects. Yeah.
And do you have any words of wisdom or votes of confidence you'd like to offer Nature Lab today?
They are so inspiring. So I'm just excited to learn from you and with you. I have no doubt, we came up to visit the sanctuary, me and a couple of my colleagues, I guess it must have been 2 years ago now. And it's such a powerful space. And I really appreciate the way that you all think about power and community power and not just like power from above. It's really amazing. So thank you all for doing this incredible work. And I'm grateful to be part of this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, next I'd like to go on to Joel Ong from York University Sensorium. Joel?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I cannot see you.
Yeah.
That's okay. If you want to keep it off, you can.
No, this is me. Yeah, hey, how's it going? Yeah. We've just stopped the car and we got kids in tow. And
it's wonderful. That I was doing that 10 minutes before this all started. So please tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing at York.
So I'm an assistant professor in computational arts, and I also direct Sensorium, which is a research center at York University, focusing on digital art and technology. Now, the main thing about Sensorium is that it's not an actual lab in itself, but it's kind of like a central lab for, I'm going to take a walk outside real quick. It's a central lab for about 13 different research facilities at the AMP, at School of the Arts, Media, Performance and Design at York University. So it's really interesting that we kind of encourage and form this network between some very disparate research labs, everything from embodiment and sentient systems to media ecologies to performance, dancers, and running the gamut of what technology means, I think, in this contemporary sensorium today.
And you're working on building your own bioart lab in the future, is that correct?
It's a pipe dream. I'm very inspired, of course, by a lot of things that are going on. And, I remember the first time I met Kathy, we were drawing blood at Symbiotica in Australia way back, just being at the Sanctuary for Independent Media as well at some point, in the last 10 years almost, we've been, at York, we've been thinking very much about how biology seems to be the new frontier of experimentation and engagement. And with these models as well, it makes such a strong and urgent case for environmental and social justice platforms to come through these, otherwise very esoteric methodologies.
And do you have any well wishes or words of wisdom for Nature Lab?
Oh, words of wisdom, probably not, but advice, yeah, I know. But, something that really resonated with me when we were talking just now was the idea of the hyperlocal. And, I actually came out today to check out the graffiti on Queen Street in Toronto. And there's one that's just being done behind me right now. And, I think there was actually one with a big fish on it. So, I had to move, but, the fish would have been like totally spot on, right? But I think the idea of being hyperlocal, York is situated in a space that is very, very, very marginalized. And, the pandemic's really exposed how urgent and very obvious these I guess inequalities are and injustices are as well. So we're really focusing very much on the hyperlocal, and we're seeing how we can be that bridge between the community and institutions, where sometimes, institutions, the literacy brokers for a lot of things like grants, connections with governments and policymakers. And so, if I were to say anything, I just want to say, congratulations on setting this workflow going. I really love how we can be a bridge, in the institutions. I really love how we can be accountable to the people around our localities and the communities in need, and how we can leverage our positions to really help them.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, guys.
And have a wonderful afternoon with your family. Okay, and last but not least, I'd like to go to Victoria Vesna. Hello, Victoria, how are you today?
Hello, Jennifer, and congratulations, Kathy, Brenda. Thank you for including me. Just very briefly, in 2005, after 5 years of chairing the Design Media Arts Department, I became so aware of the limitations, the reductionist models, the industrial models of the university, that I proposed the center, which is actually decentered because we have a small space in North Campus in the Broad Arts Building and another small space at the California Nanosystems Institute. And I made a big point of having both locations, and also a big point to not grow physically, but to think of how we can grow as a network, both within the campus and how we work within different labs and access different disciplines and disciplinary specialties, if you will. And really allow for people who don't have access to universities to come in and get access to high-level research. So working with biolabs became very quickly. In 2010, we had a symposium called Outlaw Biology, where we made a point of showing how important it is to have DIY bio, nano, et cetera, connect to universities and really, for lack of a better word, infiltrate the scientific labs, to your point, Jennifer, and really have a dialogue and relationships and friendships that evolve so that all our minds change. And this is true for the art school as well, as probably a lot of you know. I teach a class already for 8 years called Biotech and Art to honor students. I teach a GE class to students from 40 different disciplines on art and science, and a Fiat Lux class, which now is in food studies. So I don't teach in my department practically. It's like gone out. And we create a lot of events. Right now, we're focusing on sound and environment. And that's why I was so touched by this movie on environmental justice. And it's so inspiring. I'm really feeling breathless to just see what you're doing. So Joel Ong, speaking of, is going to be our resident in a new initiative that's called Atmosphere of Sound, Sound Art in the Times of Climate Disruption. That's a really big grant from the Getty. And we're really trying to expand out into thinking about frequency, sounds, and vibrations, both healing and destructive.
One of the things I also enjoy following with your lab is that you do a high school student program in the summers. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, we're in the midst of forming it, and this has been going on also for about 12 years. Really important to grab the kids before they enter into this machine, so that when they go into the university, they can really take advantage of all the possibilities and see it as their candy store. So we have reframed the idea of STEAM, because a lot of the students that come to us have this STEM education, which is actually pretty destructive, it turns out. So we're calling it science, technology, ecology, arts, and mindfulness. We're shifting the whole idea of how STEM and STEAM work. And we're really incorporating mindfulness into everything we're doing in all the classes.
Any last words of wisdom or shout out to Nature Lab you'd like to offer today?
So shout out for sure. And the words of wisdom are, please, please, let's be an alliance and let's continue this mycelium network that's got a feminine vibe. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Victoria. Now, before I move on, I do want to reach back to Catherine Febria and to Marta de Menezes, because I did not get either of you words of wisdom or a shout out to Nature Lab.
Oh, thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yay. I have no words of wisdom. I feel like I learned so much from everyone else. I also love the Sister Lab vibe. And I want to just continue to hold space for scientists, especially ecologists and freshwater ecologists, to interact more and more with your expertise and wisdom and gifts. So I just more please, and anything in any way that our little lab and our group of weirdos, science, art lover, planet lover, earth lover, friends can connect. You have kindred spirits with our lab, and I just wish you all of the best, and I look forward to us coming together and learning from each other and growing. So with that, I just invite you to, we're doing some hypothesis testing with our social media at the moment with our Lab Storyteller initiative to help revalue our waterways, and we are working with youth. So I share in that effort with you. Our efforts are with Bekejunong, the video, this beautiful sunset behind me, the traditional unceded territory, Walpole Island First Nation, and the youth are really using art to do their express their ecological monitoring, and we're using that to connect with other youth groups around the Great Lakes. So yeah, just please stay in touch, and I look forward to learning and growing with you all. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. And Marta, I want to circle back to you one more time. Any last words of wisdom or shout out you'd like to make to Nature Lab?
Well, first, I forgot to say, but I thought about it earlier, but then I forgot to say when it was my turn. First, congratulations, Kathy and Brenda. The space is amazing. You did it. It's been a long time in coming. You did it, and it looks absolutely spectacular. And like I said before, I can't wait to see it in person and go there and do something with you guys. It really looks, a dream. It feels a little bit like my dream as well. I know it's been your dream for a very long time, but it does feel a little bit like my dream as well. And so that is my shout out for you. For you, the sanctuary has been in my heart ever since I first visited it. And I know that it will always be in my heart as an example. So I don't have many words of wisdom. I am learning from you, and not the other way around. So you are an example to think about, to pursue, to follow, to look at, to try and emulate. Everything that you do is incredibly meaningful for your community, but also around the world as well. And I hope you realize that as well. I think your impact is hyper local, very, very much so. But I do wish, and I want to help make it broader and have as much as possible that kind of attitude around the world, so that we can, as Jennifer said, actually not just stand by and inherit the world as we have, but try to make it better. And I know you agree with me on this, so that's the only wish I have for you and for us, and very much very thankful for being a part of this network as well.
I think that's a beautiful note to end on, that that we're watching our collective dream manifest through this beautiful network of labs. Thank you very much, Marta. So I'd like to hand the mic back to you at Nature Lab. Congratulations. We are sending you love and well wishes, and we are here with you today to celebrate, but we will also be here with you tomorrow when you have questions, problems, dilemmas, and you need more fortitude and love to move forward. Congratulations.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Marta. Thank you, Victoria. Thank you, Joelle. Thank you, Catherine. I'm so happy to meet you today. And thank you, Beth, for coming. Beth and I have worked together for a long time too, as I have with many of you. And I love you all so much. And I just feel really honored that you're here, because you're all huge inspirations to us. We wouldn't be here without all of you. So thank you. And I'm going to pass it to Brandon now, because I'm going to start crying. So I'm going to stop.
As we shift, thank you so much. We wanted to ask a question to our guests. And this question actually arises from our Uptown Summer Youth Program, which we've also done for about 12 years. And I can feel like that might be some possibility for future collaborations of youth exchanges around the world. Our youth, as they were researching our local ecosystem, learned about the cruel history of our area and the forced relocation of our Indigenous ancestors, the Stockbridge Munsee community, from the land. And they turned to us and they said, is the cruel history against the indigenous people, also the cruel history of racism that we feel today. Is it the cruel history against Mother Earth and what we've inherited in the toxic water of the Hudson, which was once so great? And so they've been really, since that time of learning about this cruel history of forced relocation, making the connection between environmental justice and environmental action. And that's a question we'd like to ask to our guests, is why is environmental justice so important to bring into the research and action of our labs across the world?
And that's open to any of you who are our esteemed speakers.
I'm happy to share thoughts. At least here on Turtle Island and on the place on the side of the Great Lakes we call Canada, we've been experiencing a number of re-traumatizations with the news of Indigenous residential schools being revisited and bodies being identified and unearthed. And these are just confirming oral histories of communities and generations that have been sharing this information. So for the communities that experienced displacement and movement from their homes and children taken away from their families, there's a lot of shock for a lot of the settlers and white settlers who are, saying they'd never known this, but this has been known for generations. And only now I'm hoping this means people can't deny the ugly truth of what happened in the name of colonization. And so when we think about freshwater restoration in our space, water and water protecting is very much a female role, and the Odemin, the knowledge holders in our group and the communities with whom we work are doing a lot of the work to repair, not only like healing our relationship with water means healing our relationships in general with as humans and with our relationship with this world. And so we can't really use science to solve this issue or the problems in our the experiences we're suffering in the environment without really revisiting the relationship that we have with water and this idea of us being able to colonize that process and that we know what's right for the world or for water. And so those are just some things that we think about that where I'm still processing it. I'm still very much allowing the people in our team to grieve and to live through that trauma and share their words with me. So without speaking for them or those communities, I think one thing we can do as science providers, and for me as an immigrant settler, is I've always been grateful and knowing that this place is not mine, and that if we are meaning to be here for a while and to really secure a vision for our future generations and all relations, then it begins with our relationships. And so we have to acknowledge the inequity, racism, the colonization, all of those things that have been in a part of our lives for a very long time now in the places that we call home now. And so I think we know better and we can do better. And so that's why I'm here today, is because I don't know what the path will look like for every watershed and for every community, but I know that there is collective will and interest and love for one another in this planet and wanting to do better. So that's why I'm here today and why I'm here celebrating with you, because I know that we will be better a year from now and a generation from now, and it will take generations to do that work. But those are just some thoughts that I think of when we talk about EDI or equity and diversity inclusion, which is parallel to indigeneity or indigenizing our systems, but not always the same, and just recognizing that honoring the indigenous history and the colonization there isn't always the same, but is complementary with other issues that people of color are facing and that people that are in our institutions are facing. So we need all of it, but just learning the language and seeing how other people are navigating through that space gives our lab and me personally strength that we're not alone in those efforts. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Catherine. That was an amazing response to that question, and I really appreciate it. And thank you. And does anyone else have anything they want to add, even from the cats in the community?
I can
Hi.
tell you a little bit. Oh, who else? Was someone else speaking?
I was going to start,
You
but
go, Marta.
say something.
Okay, I'll go very quickly. Or you go quickly and then I'll go quickly.
No.
Okay, sorry. So I was going to say that my research is more focused on institutional spaces, right? And the relationship to the ecology through institutional spaces. So one of the things that has become incredibly apparent to me working in an institutional environment as a young woman who entered this space many years ago, but also is that a sense of belonging or welcomeness for other types of knowledge and other types of people to be in this space and to have some authority and power within this space. So the strategy that I use for engaging with environmental and racial justice here at the University of Windsor is I imagine myself as a wedge. I wedged myself into a place where I do not belong. I'm not entirely sure how it happened. I kept being persistent and annoying and really funny, and then found my little hole. And so what happens is my job in this environment now is to serve as the wedge that opens the door for other people and other thoughts and other processes to be welcome within this space and to allow their knowledge to define the future of scientific research, the future of laboratory research. One of the things that we're very focused on in our lab is the environmental the environmental impact of scientific research itself. So one of the things that we're looking at is the consumables, the disposables, the chemicals that we release from this space and how we can improve upon that so that our research is not contributing to the very problems that it's interested in addressing. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Actually, it's perfect that you said what you said, because I was going to say that the name Ectopia actually means growing outside the supposed space. This is growing outside where it's supposed to happen. This is why you have ectopic pregnancies and things like this. And I suppose that Ectopia is my dream of embedding that wedge as well. How do we grow in a space where we're not supposed to grow, and growth does happen in those spaces as well, and I think it's important to include that. Very much like Jennifer said, I do believe in knowledge from all sources and not just hierarchying the level of knowledge or the how knowledge can be better or worse. I don't believe in that at all. I believe knowledge is different, but it is knowledge nevertheless, and it's very important to. We're in a world where everything is linked, as Catherine was saying earlier. Everything is linked by water as well. We're just the land walkers that have struggled with seeing that, but everything is linked by water. In our planet, and so it makes perfect sense to me that that in a world where everything is intertwined and entangled together, that we need to work together as well, whatever we are, whoever we are, and most importantly, to be better, because I think most of us want to be better. So.
Thank you also, Jennifer and Marta, for those incredibly inspiring words as well.
Can I say something?
Oh, Nina, please. Yes, I was just going to open it up to the audience. Hello.
I just would like to attach my words and my thoughts to what Marta was saying about everything is linked. We don't really appreciate how much everything is linked. On what level, which is the level even from our inside our bodies across the whole world. And I would like to say that we should pay even more attention to the fact that everything is connected. And you can work out of an institutional background. I personally chose to work on an independent way, which is not always easy, not always appreciated, but it lets you go to all sorts of places, from Tibet to South Africa, to name it. And I think it is very important that we can all go forward on our own way, in our own local context, but connect everywhere with everybody. And I'm so happy to be part of this particular. Thank you.
Nina, thank you so much. I'm so glad you jumped in. This is really a pleasure to have you here too. Thank you. And
can I
guess,
just jump in for a second, just to add a little thought to water and interconnectedness and ecology. I think the source of every illness is a part of being disconnected, and we have to focus all our attention into health of the planet, health of the people, and clean water is the source, and clean air and clean earth to show this is really the key. So when you're talking about environmental justice, this is what environmental justice is. It's us being healthy, living in a healthy planet as planetary citizens. So we are interconnected.
Thank you, Victoria. Thank you. Does anybody else want to jump in?
I have something I thought of when Jennifer was speaking. Hi, everyone. I know I haven't met the both of you, but a huge congratulations. It's such a fantastic initiative. I just quickly wanted to mention and touch on what Jennifer said about thinking about in terms of scientific methodology and how we use reagents and those contributing factors. One other thing I just wanted to add to that was in consideration of scientific methodology itself and how it can often actually not benefit some of the different groups that it tries to benefit. One example would be a method that would actually destroy remains that just simply exists that way because those remains are not of value to the researchers that have developed the methodology, and how important it is to come in and actually alter the methodology entirely because it could come from a perspective of a group who actually values those remains and wants them to remain intact. And it's just one tiny example, but I think having that kind of perspective and thinking about how science is conducted is also really important in making sure that there could be methods redeveloped that could still have the same findings, but also honor the various groups that are involved in that kind of science. Thank you so much.
Julia, thank you. That was really beautiful. And I see that Dolores has her hand up. She's using the hand up feature. Please go ahead, Dolores.
Okay, well, congratulations. And I'm speechless on one hand in terms of what each of the guests brought into conversation, but your works encapsulates so much. And what your celebration today and the young people that you bring in, and I could not note on the fact that Brandy says resist, but your shirt says sis, as in sister or sisters. The only thing I wanted to point out, seeing where I speak from, it's the fact that this horrible conflict between the young people from underprivileged areas that have to drink and bathe and use the very poor water. I am here in a place where water is exported from and commodified. And it's revolting and it's repulsing because water, I mean, if you dig it, water comes out here. Anybody can have access, however, it gets bottled and it's engulfed or taken over by the big corporation. So I think the idea of having water as a right, not a privilege, clean water as a right, not a privilege is amazing. And I thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dolores. So nice to see you here. I'm glad you could join us, and thanks for those send-off words, because we are coming to a very quick close here. I'm sad to say, because I love hanging out with all of you. I'm gonna have to turn the lab over to the people who want to work in the lab, because we have, and I'm gonna turn the camera so you guys. Okay, so we have our participants here. So that's Jen Epstein and Shanzanique Pollock, and that is Devin Robinson.
Hello.
And they are all going to get going on the work at hand with Riverkeeper to test for Enterococcus. So we're going to let them work. We'll keep the camera on for just a few minutes so you can watch them in the lab. And we'll just sort of, you know, let them have their chatter. We'll just evaporate. I can't thank you all for coming today, for being part of this, for being part of this bigger network. And I also, we did have a wonderful opening of Marta's lab, which is incredible. And I can't wait to get there too. And so we're celebrating our lab today, but then we will also be opening Jennifer's lab in the very near future, date to be confirmed. So please watch for that announcement and please join us then. And I want to thank everyone here at the sanctuary, because this is an amazing team and we couldn't do it without each other and without the love and collaboration and effort that everybody has put into this. I'm sure I'm forgetting to thank a million people, but I want you to please put in the chat as you're just watching these last few minutes what ideas you have for future international lab collaborations that we can all, you know, aspire to bring to life. That would be a real dream for all of us, because I know we have people, again, from all over the world here. So thank you all for joining us, and just have a great day, and we love you all.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to our esteemed guests. Thank you, Jennifer. We'll go about 10 minutes, do you think? Yeah, we'll go about 10 minutes, okay?
Take it and carry it and walk around.
Brandon's gonna walk around and I'm just gonna let her walk around. Bye.
We're doing the kind of less exciting part of the process today, where we're just reading results. So you don't get to see all of the raw water in action, but if anybody on the phone has used the IDEX system to measure water quality before, you'll be familiar with this. Shanzanique is counting and she's gonna mark the trays, and then I'm just gonna record our info on our data sheet. That's a nice data sheet here. Some beautiful, these are samples from the Hudson River that volunteers went out yesterday and sampled at about 30 locations from the Adirondacks down to Troy. And then the other water justice fellow, Genesis, went to the Troy waterfront and grabbed a sample right there. And we brought them back and processed them here. And today we get to find out what the water was like.
Hi. Thank you, Jen.
Yeah. And now you can watch Shanzanique count.
Okay, let's put the computer down and just let them work around.
Okay.
Chair, can we go behind you guys?
Then we move on. Just curious.
This side. There we go.
So do you?
It's the main image. Great. But if they're kind of a little closer, like one here.
Yeah, and you know what I'll do? I'll double check your, I'll just proof check your. Yeah. Okay, and then if we fall behind.
Yeah.
And then I'll also just look at your trees. We're in agreement.
Jeff is asking what the machine is.
What is the machine, Jen? Can you explain what the machine is? Yeah.
It's a UV light. It's just a UV bulb that's in a light box, so that first of all you can, you can see, because you're not having all this ambient light, but also to protect people because you don't want UV light just hanging out.
Maybe when Nikki, when you put in the next one, will you raise the curtain so we can just see it and show
You
it?
guys want to bring it over? Oh,
Is
the
it-
glow.
Yeah, the glow.
I can do that while she's for a minute.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. Can you put the camera?
Try it. Let's show us here, and then I'll try that.
Okay.
So explain what you're doing. So you're putting
Yeah,
it
so
in.
if you can see, there's a little bit of a UV kind of glow in there. The way that this system works is that if the enterococcus bacteria are present in any one of these little wells, it will glow under the UV light. And if the entero are absent, it should not glow. It will just be sort of like a yellow. And so we put it under here. Whoa. Yeah, and so I can only tilt it so far because the angle of the light, but
Where is that from when it's so glowing?
no, we do them blind so that we're not.
What do you do?
Yeah, we're not supposed to look at the name of the site before we count, just so that we're not sort of biased, but, oh, that's up in Newcomb. So that's pretty high up in the system, in the upper Hudson system. And this is a place where people get in the water for whitewater sports. So it's a place where you want the water quality to be good, because that's something where you can be splashing around and getting water in your face. Can you see?
Should we try
Can you
this?
do it?
Yeah, let me try it. My camera's right there. You see it, you guys? Okay, so that's what Shantani's looking at when she looks in there and does the count.
Yeah, she can see, yeah. And glowing is bad. Glowing is bad. Yeah, you want this to be not glowing. You want this to be not glowing. And so she has marked them with a Sharpie, and then we'll count them and double count them just to make sure we don't have any miscounts.
Thank
And
you.
then the next one, okay. It's not a Muppet. It's not one of the Muppets. It's a Elmo costume he drew out, but it was named over the room. I use that because a lot of people are exploiting this guy with and I got my friend twice because he opened it and there was a toad one and long legs, and he's like, "What is this?" And he turned it off, and then it changed it to the Elmo one and did it again. I think you can different. So yeah, I think it's supposed to be that for them. Small. This one was really good. Yeah, this one is really good. Okay, try that. Oh. So we just did our next sample, which is also up in the upper part of the Hudson River. This one's about, it's about 6 miles from that other site, and this one is great water quality. So this is one example of how it really depends where you are. The water quality really varies from place to place, even on the same day, in roughly the same time period. And I'm gonna double check. Yeah, so here we have an enter account of 579 and here we have 20.
Wow.
At the two neighboring sites about 6 miles apart.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Difference.
Yeah. It's good that you started with these.
Will you guys wave to everybody? Steve? Let me get Steve here. Goodbye, everybody. We're having a final
Thank you.
goodbye. Goodbye. On your computer, right? Goodbye, everybody.
Here, Kathy, here, I'm walking around, Kathy.
Oh, hi. Bye, everybody. Thank you for joining us. And I hope that you get to visit us in person. Mwah. Bye. There's
Ciao.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. Bye.